This is God's Feeding Station. Welcome aboard. We're at it again with another latest broadcast. We're in Boulder, Colorado, originating this podcast out to the globe to anybody with ears to hear. And I'm Pastor Doug White in one studio. Henry Loke is in another studio, and we continue in the book of Jonah.
Yep.
Henry, do you have a title?
Jonah's sacrifice.
Oh, okay. And you want me to start on what, verse 10?
Yeah, 10 through 16.
Almost to the end?
Yeah, almost to the end.
Okay, let me read it in the broadcast. And remember, this was, to get our audience up, the words of the Lord came to Jonah, and he was sent to the great city of Nineveh to preach against it. It was pretty wicked. So instead, Jonah runs away, and he heads for a city called Tarshish. He gets on board a boat. A big, giant storm, squalls up, and Jonah goes down below the deck and goes to sleep. And the sailors, the captains, everybody's like, dude, you need to do something here. Everybody's screaming out to their gods. We got to figure out, what happened and why it happened. And the people were terrified. And so in verse 10, it says, in fact, they were terrified. And they asked, what have you done? Now they were talking to Jonah. He had just told them he was a Hebrew, that he had worshiped the Lord God of heaven. And this God made the sea and the land that they were dealing with. So, as the sea was getting rougher in verse 11 and then rougher, they asked him, what should we do to you to make the sea calm down for us? And Jonah says, pick me up, throw me into the sea. He replied, and it will become calm. I know that it's my fault that this great storm has come upon you. Instead, the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried to the Lord, O Lord, please do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man. For you, O Lord, have done as you pleased. Then they took Jonah and they threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord, and they made vows to him. Okay? Yeah. People do that, man, when it gets intense.
Yeah, tell me
like,
about
okay,
it.
I'll bow the knee now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Why does it take us, to being in the midst of a hurricane for us to finally turn to God and go, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, I think we're stubborn. I think it's not till we're really put into a corner. Yeah. When there's nothing we can do, will we bow the knee, man? It's like last resort.
Yep. Well, interestingly enough, they figure out why this is happening to them, and they say to Jonah, "How do we get out of this? How do we, how do we get out of this mess? What will calm the sea?" And Jonah, I guess, in a little bit of repentance, says, "You know what? It's my fault. So toss me overboard."
Yep.
And to their credit, they try to do everything to spare his life.
Right.
But again, there's a lesson here that's got to be learned on both sides, and so eventually, they give in and they throw him overboard. But they say, "God, please don't let his blood be on our hands,"
right?
Because they're really not the initial cause of the whole problem, right? Jonah is, because of his fleeing God's commands.
Sure, exactly.
But they come. It's funny how they're not offering sacrifices to their gods who they were just praying to minutes ago. Now they get it, and they're going, wow, there is only one God, and this is the guy. And so now they're offering sacrifices to the Lord, and Thanksgiving, and they're taking vows now. So it's interesting how out of this mess comes salvation for the crew.
Yes.
It seems like.
Yeah, and how often do we see what initially looks like just an awful tragedy? We see it and we're just like, oh man, how could God let this happen? But with hindsight, or with some patience, or not trying to judge God, we start realizing that he can turn it to the good, and he uses it. Right. And the reality is, like you said, people decide to turn and worship the one true living God of the universe. I think it's pretty interesting that as it starts getting ramped up, that Jonah's like, well, pick me up, throw me into the sea, and then it'll grow calm. How do you think he knew that? Do you think he...
Well, I think he's aware at this point. I think, when he flees, the question is, when he flees, does he think, once he gets on the boat, I wonder if he's thinking, I got away with this. I'm out of here. How many times do we think we get away with something?
Yes.
Right? Well, I didn't get caught doing X, so I'm good to go.
Right.
And then all of a sudden something happens and there's a thought in your back of your mind going, I'm getting slapped for what I did a couple of weeks ago. And I wonder if he thought he was good to go. I just don't need to do this. And God's going, no.
Yeah.
And when he comes up and he sees what's happening. And then and the other thing is when they cast lots to see who is the cause of this, it comes up, his number comes up.
Right.
So he's got to be looking at all this going, oh, crap, dude. Seriously? I guess I'm not off the hook.
Yeah.
And so he sees what's happening, and I think he's convicted in his heart to go, this is my fault, and I can't take these guys down with me. And he just says, you know what? Toss me into the sea. I disobeyed God. I went against his command. I fled, and this is my fault. So I can't take an entire crew in a ship with me. This is my fault. And so he that's why I titled it Jonah's Sacrifice. I think he has a change of heart on some level and offers himself up.
Yeah, there's certainly a change of mind and direction for him from initially being disobedient and getting on the ship and going the wrong way.
Yep.
He's willing to die.
Seems to be.
Yeah, for the sake of the sailors. He is convinced that if he just gets thrown in, they're going to be okay. And, he went downstairs and went to sleep, kind of like, I'm just going to wait this storm out.
Yep.
But now he's like, no, throw me in. That's pretty intentional, active move.
Right.
And so they did their best to row. Now they don't, I don't know, they don't use the wisdom that he's given them, throw me over and this thing will be done.
Right.
Instead, which I think shows their compassion. We're not going to just throw a guy overboard.
Yeah. Yep. They show more compassion for him than he shows for Nineveh, right?
Yeah, initially for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So yeah, they tried to do everything they can to at least maybe get to shore, maybe put him on shore, right? Maybe that's what they're thinking.
Right.
We'll just put this guy on the shore. That way, at least he won't die.
Yeah, that's good. And I don't know that the sailors actually renounced the other gods they'd been sacrificing to or anything. But at least they do recognize the God of Israel.
Right. But it says they took vows.
Yeah, so they at least that.
I
was thinking of like the pagan culture that believes in many gods, polytheistic.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if they just were like initially thinking, well, we'll add this guy into our knapsack. I mean, if we can get Jonah's God in here, then we're okay. But I
don't know.
They did fear the Lord, okay? So at least there's an acknowledgement that the present events were from and instilled by the God of Israel.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yep, I would agree. Yeah, I think there's an acknowledgement that, because of the circumstances and the outcome here of tossing Jonah overboard, they go, oh, okay. Because I think it's obvious they've heard of the God of Israel.
Sure.
But they've got their own, it's kind of like, is it Paul in Acts, where he's walking through whatever city it is, and it's like you even have a temple to the unknown God.
Yes, it is in Acts.
Yeah. So, I think they pray to their gods and nothing happens. Jonah prays to his God and they cast lots and this whole thing comes down. And
there's the testimony.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think that's the testimony. And they're like, ooh, okay. Guess our gods are, it's, I don't remember. Is it Ezekiel? I forget who, who was it? When the prophet says, you build an altar to your gods and I'm going to build an altar to the one true God, and they start doing all these things, and they're cutting themselves, and they're not getting any response from their gods. And then, I can't remember who it was, the prophet says, okay, douse everything with water. And then God burns the whole thing up and shows himself. It's kind of the same thing.
Okay.
Can't remember where that is. But, it's that type of thing, and God shows himself. in a big way, and to the point where there's no denying him at that point. So,
well, my closing thought is probably take our own lives and say, when are the times that we're willing to show that we're all in, we're sold out, unto death. It's like whatever it takes in order for people to be saved. And then you start realizing that's faith.